All right, let's begin. Thank you for joining. This session is about something very practical and very powerful, taking the systems you already rely on and teaching them new tricks with AI. Most organizations live in two realities at once. There are the platforms that run the business every day, and there are the possibilities you keep hearing about in AI. My aim today is to connect those two realities in a way that is safe, measurable, and fast enough to matter. Over the past few years, many teams have accumulated a patchwork of tools across Microsoft 365, Salesforce, ERP suites, data warehouses, and a long tail of homegrown applications. You do not need to rip any of that out. You can wrap intelligence around what you already trust and see results on the dashboards you already use. When people hear AI, they often picture a rip and replace program, giant budgets, and long timelines. That is not the agenda. We're talking about augmentation. We keep what already works. We add an intelligence layer that observes, summarizes, triages, and assists. We place models where they create leverage, next to a camera that never sleeps, besides a workflow that drowns in clicks, on top of a knowledge base that is underused, or inside a decision loop where seconds change outcomes. The result is not a science experiment. It's better throughput, fewer errors, faster cycles, and clear evidence for auditors and executive boards. Think of it as adding a capable coworker into the moments where attention is scarce and the stakes are high. The path to that result is straightforward. We begin with value, not algorithms. We identify the specific moments where a process bogs down, where context switching burns hours, or where compliance reviews create friction. We map constraints with care so the solution respects data boundaries, privacy obligations, vendor realities, and the quirks of both legacy endpoints and modern APIs. We design with human judgment in mind. AI proposes, and humans decide. Every step leaves a trail that can be reviewed, measured, and improved. Security and compliance are not afterthoughts. They help shape the solution so it's dependable on day one and auditable on day 100. From there, we move from idea to impact. We stand up a focused pilot inside your environment, using your tools and your data. We embed the augmentation where work already happens, which means no new portals unless there is a clear upside. We measure the outcomes your leaders track today, such as cycle time, error rate, cost to serve, response time, and satisfaction. If the pilot pays for itself and holds up under scrutiny, we scale it carefully. That includes versioning, drift monitoring, retraining plans, change management, and hands-on training so adoption sticks. My goal here today is to leave you with a short list of pilot candidates, a realistic view of effort and cost, and a clear path from proof of concept to production that avoids vendor lock-in and protects your options. Under the hood, the ingredients will vary by use case. Some solutions benefit from computer vision running at the edge to catch events as they happen. Others use retrieval over your documents, policies, and tickets to answer questions with citations and context. In some cases, light agents can complete tasks end-to-end with strong guardrails while surfacing decisions for human approval when needed. The point is not to chase buzzwords. We will call out integration patterns that play nicely with Microsoft 365, Salesforce, common ERPs, and modern data platforms, and we will show how to avoid brittle one-offs that fall apart at the first upgrade. By the end of this session, you'll have a clear picture of where AI fits in your world, which patterns are low risk and high return, and how to move from a single use case to an operating model that scales. You'll also see that this is achievable without pausing the business or rewriting the past. It's about precision, governance, and speed. I'll close with two real stories that make this concrete, including how proctors can safely supervise far more learners, and how safety teams on offshore rigs can see what matters in time to act. For now, I invite you to listen for that one workflow in your operation that would change everything if it were faster, safer, or more consistent. That is where we will start, and that's how I will turn AI from hype into help. Before I talk about the how, here is the who. Svitla is the engineering backbone behind everything you're seeing today. We're more than 1,000 specialists operating from 15 locations across the United States, Central and South America, Eastern Europe, and Asia. That reach is practical. It lets us place the right people in your working day, shorten feedback cycles, and keep momentum without asking your team to live on late nights. 2 decades and more than 5,000 successful deliveries mean we have worked with platforms that must never go down, stacks that need to move quickly, and every hybrid in between. So we depend on patterns that hold up in real production rather than one-off heroics that fade after a demo. What you get from us are focused teams assembled for your stack and domain. Our bench spans data engineers, cloud architects, mobile and web developers, QA and automation experts, DevOps, cybersecurity, and of course, AI specialists. For enterprises, we strengthen core systems and add capabilities without disrupting operations. For startups, we turn ideas into investor-ready MVPs and scale them responsibly. Engagement is flexible and transparent. If you want dedicated specialists to augment your team, we staff them quickly. If you prefer a cross-functional team that owns outcomes end-to-end, we stand it up fast and measure progress in business terms you already track. Because we integrate with your tool chain, repositories, pipelines, incident flow, and dashboards remain yours, and knowledge stays where it should live. Inside your environment, we adopt your identity and access controls so every suggestion and every action respects roles, permissions, and data boundaries. We implement quality gates and performance baselines that make progress visible and accountable. If you ever wish progress can continue while you slept, this is the rare wish that comes true without a genie, because our time zones hand off work like a relay team instead of a marathon runner stopping for breath. If AI is on your roadmap, you get the full delivery stack, not just model tinkering. We handle data readiness, application integration, observability that records what the system saw and suggested, and human-in-the-loop controls so the feature stays useful and safe. We plan versioning, drift monitoring, and retraining schedules so improvements are routine instead of emergency projects. Our global bench provides coverage and cross-training that protect the work when a key contributor is unavailable. Leaders see the backlog, the test results, the deployment status, and the performance deltas against baseline in the dashboards they already trust. You're not taking a leap of faith on a boutique without depth or a body shop without accountability. You're partnering with a company that meets you where you are, aligns with your working day, and brings proven delivery at scale. The logos on this slide show who has trusted us. The outcomes we deliver show you why. Why AI and why now? The timing matters because every organization has seen waves of technology that promise transformation and deliver disruption without payoff. This moment is different for 3 practical reasons. The cost to serve keeps rising while attention stays flat. Teams context switch all day and backlogs never seem to shrink. An intelligence layer that triages work, drafts first passages, and surfaces the right context at the right time directly reduces that strain. The technology also fits cleanly inside the systems you already trust, with identity, permissions, and audit trails that legal and security leaders accept. And finally, adoption patterns are proven. We can run measured pilots that earn their way into production and keep earning with real metrics. So why AI is pretty straightforward. Most processes contain pockets of repetitive cognition that are too variable for traditional automation and too frequent to treat as special. Think of inbox triage, knowledge lookup, report synthesis, status summaries, and first responses. AI handles the first 60 to 80% quickly and consistently, then hands refined work to a human who applies judgment. If you have ever wanted a responsible clone on your busiest day, this version files its own timesheets and brings context along for the ride. Now let's talk about the why now, because it comes down to readiness and economics. Data access can be governed with the roles and permissions you already use. Integration patterns let us embed help inside Outlook, Teams, Salesforce, Jira, ServiceNow, or your own web pages, not beside them. Monitoring shows what the model saw, what it suggested, and what the human accepted, which gives compliance leaders the transparency they actually need. Model options are sized to the job, from managing services for speed to private deployments where boundaries are strict. Unit economics are clearer as well. We benchmark cycle time, error rate, satisfaction, and cost to serve before and after a pilot, and judge whether the change paid for itself. There is a competitive angle that should not be ignored. It comes from operationalizing the boring but valuable use cases first and iterating with discipline. Teams that move now shorten feedback loops, resolve tickets faster, and make better decisions with the same headcount. This is not about replacing people or rewriting your core systems. It's about refactoring the work so people focus on decisions and exceptions while AI handles reading, summarizing, classifying, and drafting with approvals where they matter, and records that can be reviewed later. Adoption sticks when wins are felt during the day. We start with read-only assistance, progress to semi-automated steps with approvals, and allow more autonomy only when evidence supports it. Risk and value rise together, which keeps momentum high and surprises low. We keep AI grounded in the places where your teams already work. The goal is not a new portal or a parallel process. The goal is to embed intelligence inside Outlook, Teams, Salesforce, Jira, ServiceNow, or your own applications so relief shows up in familiar tools and results land on the reports you already trust. When AI is experienced as a helpful coworker inside the workflow, adoption feels natural and training remains minimal. A few capability types deliver immediate value. Predictive models flag risk, urgency, or likely outcomes and include short reason codes so a human understands the nudge. Generative systems create the first drafts for reports, customer updates, and code that humans then refine. Conversational interfaces let people ask in plain language and receive answers that link back to exact passages for verification. Vision reads receipts and invoices, identifies parts and defects, and detects safety conditions in video. All of this becomes reliable through operational care, including versioning, evaluation, and rollback. If someone asks where the new interface is, the answer is right where they already work, which is comfort to anyone juggling 12 tabs and a coffee that cooled sometime last quarter. These ingredients show up in repeating patterns. Assistance in the flow of work drafts responses with citations, summarizes long threads, proposes policy-aligned next steps, and turns meetings into action items that land in the right system. Retrieval with grounding connects policies, manuals, tickets, and wikis so answers are concise and traceable to the source. Decision support surfaces scores at the point of choice with a suggested play and a brief rationale. Task automation with approval reads requests, extracts fields that belong in your systems, opens a case, drafts the reply, and routes it for sign-off keeping humans in control. Perception extracts structured facts from documents and spots conditions on video with a clear record of what was detected. Voice brings the same help to the phone and hands off smoothly when a person is needed. Background enrichment quietly shapes messy inputs into clean records for CRM and ERP. Across all patterns, we adopt your identity and permissions, keep activity reviewable, and measure outcomes in the metrics leaders already track. Pick one pattern that fits today, land it where people already work, measure the lift, and then expand where the same shape applies. Typical use cases cluster in 3 zones that touch almost everything you ship and support: the product your customers use, the operational backbone that keeps the business running, and the tools developers rely on to move from idea to release. We design around those zones because they line up with the metrics leaders already track and slot cleanly into existing systems, which keeps adoption friction low and results visible. Inside the product, personalization guides the next best action and raises conversion without a redesign. Conversational help, grounded in your policies and linked to exact passages, resolves a large share of routine support in the channels your customers already prefer. Search becomes intent-aware and typo-tolerant, so people find what they need on the first try. If finding content once felt like "Where's Waldo?", it starts to feel like an usher walking you straight to your seat with a flashlight and a smile. Operations are where quiet compounding wins live. Forecasting absorbs seasonality, promotions, and regional effects, so plans match reality rather than hope. Fraud and risk review benefit from anomaly detection that scores events in real time, shows which signals drove the score, and routes cases with context so reviewers make quick, defensible decisions. Intelligent document processing reads invoices, contracts, and forms, extracts the data that belongs in ERP or CRM, shows its work for review, and posts clean records that make downstream analytics honest. Hours of manual entry turn into a short approval step, and cycle time and cost to serve move in the right direction. Developer tools change the shape of time. Coding assistants provide idiomatic scaffolding and tests that match your conventions. Incident triage clusters related failures and points to likely dependencies or recent changes, so mean time to resolution shrinks. Test generation proposes unit and integration paths from a spec and a diff, uses safe synthetic data, and adapts when the UI shifts. Vision and voice widen what is possible, from extracting line items to verifying identity and retrieving guidance over the phone. None of this requires a new interface. It requires placing the right capability at the right moment so people stay in control and the day gets lighter. The combined effect is a steady lift across customer experience, operational efficiency, and engineering velocity measured in the dashboards you already rely on. Before any pilot, we ask a practical question. Is the platform and the organization around it ready? A strong use case is not enough if the foundations are brittle. The readiness scan is focused and fast. We look at architecture, data, integration, security, and culture to ensure the first project lands cleanly and the second one is even easier. Architecture dictates how easily intelligence can be added and scaled. A monolithic system can succeed with carefully chosen integration points, a clear deployment path, and a safe rollback plan. A service-oriented platform makes it straightforward to plug in a module that scales independently. Cloud posture matters because many capabilities expect dependable access to storage, inference, and monitoring. If the core remains on-premises, we plan connectivity, identity federation, and data movement early so there are no surprises later. It's like checking the spare tire before a road trip. not discovering the nail after mile 2 when the trunk is full and the snacks are gone. Data readiness is the next gate. We inventory where facts live, how they're labeled, and how often they change. We confirm lawful use under the regulations that apply, verify that consent and retention rules are honored, and clean up duplicates or ambiguous fields that sabotage accuracy. Integration determines whether ideas can touch the real flow. On the back end, we confirm secure APIs and idempotent calls. We check for events or webhooks so real-time outputs drive action now rather than waiting for a nightly batch. On the front end, we verify that the UI can accommodate chat, inline suggestions, citations, or an approval step without disrupting flow. Security and compliance travel with everything else. We align with your identity provider, so role-based access follows the user. We plan encryption, key management, and secrets handling that match your standards. If a managed model is involved, we address vendor risk, residency, and privacy in plain language. If a private deployment is required, we size and monitor it with a clear path to patching and rollback. Organizational readiness often decides speed. We confirm alignment on the problem and success measures, identify who will own later iterations, and ensure sponsorship includes budget, timeline, and change management. The output is a short readiness map that answers deployment, context, integration, safety, and culture. With those conditions present, a pilot feels like the natural next step rather than a gamble. Turning a good idea into a reliable outcome starts with a clear plan. We choose one use case, one audience we can serve well, and one outcome that already lives on a dashboard your leaders check. We capture a clean baseline and write down the observation window so we know which changes belong to the pilot. From there, we confirm the required data exists at the moment of decision, is accurate enough to matter, and is lawful to use. As much as everyone appreciates a hero moment, we prefer a checklist to a cape because checklists do not disappear for dinner right before launch. We assess technical infrastructure with the same practicality. We look for a dependable path to host models or integrate with APIs, and for CI and CD pipelines that promote changes safely. We size storage and compute for real workloads, plan identity and secrets, and put monitoring in place so behavior is predictable. Tool selection fits privacy, performance, and cost today while preserving options for tomorrow. Sometimes that is a managed capability grounded in your data. Sometimes it's a hosted model in the cloud. And sometimes it's a private deployment where boundaries are strict or latency must be tight. Teams and skills matter every bit as much. Product, engineering, data, security, and operations need a shared understanding of potential and limits, plus a clear owner for later iterations. Governance provides guardrails. Humans approve where risk lives. We monitor drift, keep version prompts and models, and define thresholds for escalation with an easy rollback path. Change management and cost discipline round it out. The experience stays inside existing tools. Feedback is collected in the flow of work, and usage and spend are watched from day one with budgets and alerts. When all these pieces come together, the first win feels inevitable rather than lucky, and the second arrives faster because the groundwork is real and repeatable. AI strategy is the art of fitting the approach to your constraints while preserving room to change course as evidence arrives. We begin by defining a measurable outcome, confirming the data we can use legally and ethically, and validating that the infrastructure can host a service or call one reliably. With that foundation, we choose a path that balances speed, control, and cost without boxing you in. One lane is AI as a service. We call a managed capability over an API, ground it in your data, and control it through your identity and logging. It is ideal for summarizing, answering policy questions with citations, or triaging requests when privacy can be enforced with redaction and strict access. Another lane is hosted models in your environment, where you control versioning and latency and tune for your domain while keeping operational burden reasonable. Choosing this lane is a bit like picking footwear for a hike, boots for rocks, sneakers for the trail, and flip-flops for the beach. A third lane is a custom pipeline where the model itself becomes part of your advantage. We choose this when your data contains a unique signal, when regulation expects full control, or when the capability defines the product. This path invests in experiment tracking, a model registry, continuous evaluation, and a retraining cadence that matches how your world changes. There's also an axis for intelligence at the edge, where models run on devices, browsers, or gateways to meet privacy, bandwidth, or continuity needs with over-the-air updates and graceful fallbacks. We make the selection using 4 questions. Where may the data go and who may handle it? How fast must the answer arrive? Is the capability core to the product or a value add? Will you fund ongoing retraining or rely on a managed service? Around these answers, we keep interfaces thin and documented, version prompts and tools like code, and track both price per call and cost per successful outcome. With the right lane chosen, we wire the parts so the experience is dependable on busy days, not only in demos. And we keep an exit plan written down so portability is real. All right, take a look at this high-level architecture diagram. It's a chat experience, and it looks fairly simple. A person asks, and the system answers. Reliability comes from the services around that moment. The front door is an API gateway that enforces single sign-on, roles, rate limits, request size, and timeouts. Identity travels forward so downstream systems can make permission decisions. Behind the gateway, lightweight middleware validates the payload, redacts sensitive fields, tags the request with correlation IDs, and chooses a route. If answers must be grounded, the middleware first calls retrieval to fetch relevant passages from SharePoint, Confluence, Salesforce, or a warehouse. If the user asks for an action, the middleware frames a safe internal function with a clear schema and strict scope. Think of it as a velvet rope that welcomes the right guests and politely turns away the rest. Prompt construction comes next. We assemble instructions, user intent, and context into a compact prompt that fits token and latency budgets. For multi-turn chats, we keep a trimmed memory so the assistant stays coherent without bloating the request. We choose the engine that fits the job and policy, stream responses so people see progress quickly, and log template versions, retrieved sources, model and parameter choices, per hop latency, token counts, cost estimates, and outcome codes. A feedback loop closes the gap between first ship and steady improvement. Users can rate or flag a response, and those signals become labeled data for tuning prompts and retrieval. When confidence is low or a user flags an answer, we escalate to a human with evidence attached and record the resolution. Resilience is designed with caching for common queries, timeouts and retries with backoff, circuit breakers and secondary models, and graceful degradation to save paths when a dependency fails. For the same reason, we keep a small evaluation harness that replays private test sets whenever prompts, models, or retrieval logic change. The same skeleton supports automation with approvals. A message becomes intent, intent maps to a safe tool, the tool runs deterministic steps, and a human approves where risk lives. The audit trail shows who asked, what context was retrieved, what the model proposed, what ran, and what a human approved, which turns compliance reviews into a look of facts rather than guesses. Adopting AI that lasts is a staged process that balances speed with structure. Discovery and feasibility come first. We identify high friction workflows where seconds matter, confirm that the data exists and is lawful to use, verify we can touch the workflow through APIs, events, or a modest UI change, and write down a value hypothesis, success metrics, an architectural sketch, and a short risk list so nothing surprises us later. Next is a proof of concept that tests one focused use case quickly and cheaply with existing data and pre-built models. We keep the experience inside the tools people already use, run in read-only or suggest-only mode, and measure against the baseline captured during discovery. If value shows up, we proceed. If it doesn't, we stop early and choose a better target. If a pilot insists it needs fireworks to be excited, we swap the fireworks for a checklist and discover that reliability is the real win. The pilot brings the concept into the real platform for a limited audience. Feature flags define who sees what. Role-based access keeps scope intentional. We add monitoring for latency and errors, observability for prompts, sources, versions, decisions, and cost, and fallbacks that deliver safe behavior when a dependency fails. Users can rate or flag responses without leaving the tool. Humans remain in control, and we set up a control group or an A/B split so improvement is visible on the dashboards leaders already trust. Full integration follows when the pilot earns its keep. We tune models for the workload, harden infrastructure for scale, document identity and privacy posture, and set budgets, alerts, and runbooks so reliability is routine. Continuous improvement never ends. We track quality, cost, drift, maintain evaluation sets from real traffic, and retrain or retune when thresholds trigger. The pattern then expands to adjacent workflows that share the same ingredients, and the feature becomes cheaper, more accurate, and easier to operate over time. The upside is real, and the traps are predictable. Winning teams treat them as design inputs rather than surprises. Data quality and lawful use decide whether the foundation holds. We define data contracts so fields mean one thing across systems, assign owners, and set freshness and completeness targets. We track lineage so we know where a fact came from and who touched it. When data can't leave its home due to regulation or policy, we process close to the source, minimize what is shared, and ground answers with citations so people can verify the origin. Benchmarks help, but production is where truth lives. Models drift, so we plan for it from day one. We watch for data and concept drift with evaluation sets that reflect real traffic, agree on thresholds for investigation and rollback, and release prompts and models with small canaries. Where ground truth exists, we compare decisions to human review and learn from the gaps. Security and compliance run beside everything else. We adopt your identity and permissions, redact PII before any external call, encrypt data in transit and at rest, and document flows and residency so legal and security leaders sign off based on evidence. If you've ever assembled furniture without instructions, you understand why we insist on an audit trail that shows exactly what happened and when. Trust and explainability decide whether people use the feature. We ground answers in your documents with links to exact passages, add reason codes for predictions, and keep humans in the loop where risk lives with easy escalation. Performance and cost matter in production. We right-size models, trim prompts, cache safely, stream responses, and watch token counts and call rates with budgets and alerts. Reliability gets timeouts, retries, circuit breakers, secondary models, and graceful fallbacks. Organizational alignment is the quiet challenge. Product, engineering, legal, support, and leadership agree on the problem, the measure of success, and the guardrails. Clear charters, honest reporting, and feedback in the flow of work make adoption stick. Vendor risk and portability are addressed early on so no one wakes up locked in by accident, and governance is written down, not implied. Adding AI to a legacy or modern system is not only about a model. It's about the full stack that feeds it, governs it, measures it, and delivers results inside the tools people already use. We position the intelligence behind your gateway, enforce identity and roles, and wrap it with a clear contract that defines inputs, outputs, and allowed tools. When the assistant needs to read from or write to a system, it calls a narrow reviewed function, which keeps scope safe and behavior predictable. Reliability comes from disciplined operations, experiment tracking, a model registry, reproducible runs, routine promotion and rollback, and continuous evaluation that reflects your traffic and risk. Data is the oxygen. Warehouses such as Snowflake or BigQuery keep structured and semi-structured data current and queryable. A vector index supports fast semantic lookups across policies, manuals, tickets, and PDFs. We choose chunking and metadata that match the questions people ask, keep embeddings fresh on a dependable schedule, and respect row-level security so retrieval never leaks content a user should not see. Pipelines are the plumbing. Airflow schedules movement and transformation. dbt turns raw data into clean, documented models, and Kafka streams events so real-time signals can trigger action. Jobs are idempotent and observable, with lineage that explains how facts traveled and where they landed. Results matter when people can use them, so we surface impact in business intelligence tools the business already trusts, such as Power BI or Tableau. Model health, latency, cost, drift, and adoption sit next to existing operational metrics, which keeps decision-making grounded in one shared view. We thread answers and approvals back into Outlook, Teams, Salesforce, ServiceNow, Jira, or your application's record page so no one needs a new portal or a new habit to benefit. If someone asks where to click, the answer is the same place they clicked today, only now the response arrives faster and with context attached. Security and governance stay in the foreground. We tokenize or redact PII before external calls, encrypt data everywhere, document vendors and residency, and keep a clear record of inputs, suggestions, approvals, and outcomes. Budgets and alerts keep spend predictable, and rate limits protect upstream and downstream systems. This ecosystem enhances what you already own, improves reliability, and avoids a disruptive rewrite. The effect is a platform that learns and assists without changing where work happens, which is exactly how AI becomes a dependable part of daily operations rather than a side project. Let me close with two real stories. A national credentialing provider asked for help with a scaling problem that touched revenue, reputation, and equity of access. Their business depends on proctored exams for licenses like the Series 7. The model was simple. Human proctors watched candidates over webcams while client software locked down the workstation. It worked, but it didn't scale. A skilled proctor could focus on 3 or 4 people at a time, maybe a few more on a good day, and that ceiling translated into long wait times for candidates and capped throughput for the business. We reimagined the workflow by adding an intelligence layer that observes, triages, and assists rather than replaces. On the audio side, models listened for anomalies that sounded like whispered answers or off-screen coaching. On the video side, computer vision tracked head pose and gaze patterns, flagged out-of-bounds screen attention, and noticed when a candidate disappeared from the frame. The system included context signals too, sudden application focus changes, device events, and network patterns that correlated with risk. Every signal rolled into a risk score, and when the score crossed a threshold, the proctor got a prioritized alert with a short, human-readable explanation and a playback snippet. The proctor made the decision, and the AI never issued a sanction on its own. We paid special attention to governance. All detections were logged with timestamps and model versions. Candidates saw a transparent disclosure of what was monitored and why. The legal team reviewed retention policies and access controls. We tuned the system for low false positives so candidates were not unfairly interrupted, and we built the appeal trail directly into the workflow. The impact was immediate. One proctor could effectively supervise on the order of 100 simultaneous test takers with high consistency, predictable documentation, and significantly shorter queues. For the test takers, that meant taking an exam tomorrow, not weeks from now. And for the business, it meant expanded capacity without hiring a small army or sacrificing integrity. The second story comes from offshore drilling, where safety is everything and the work never stops. Picture a vast structure sitting miles from shore, hundreds of people rotating through shifts, and control rooms miles away filled with monitors streaming video from hundreds of cameras. Even with an experienced team, the sheer volume of visual information makes it easy to miss a critical moment at 2 a.m. on a stormy night. Here, we added computer vision to the existing camera network and connected it to the tools the safety team already trusted. Models detected PPE compliance in real time, starting with hard hats, vests, and eye protection. Geofencing defined restricted zones and hot work areas. Line crossing logic noticed when a person and a forklift were on a collision course. When the system saw something unsafe, it produced a concise alert with the camera ID, a timestamp, and a frame capture, and routed it to the right channel for action. Alarms triggered only when confidence and risk warranted it, and the humans remained the authority. Again, the guardrails mattered. We ran structured pilots, measured false positives, and tuned thresholds with frontline crews so alerts were actionable rather than noisy. We recorded detections for after-action reviews and trend analysis, then fed those learnings back into the training. The results showed fewer near misses, faster interventions, and a safety culture that felt augmented rather than surveilled. People understood the system existed to get them home safely. These examples highlight a simple pattern that repeats across industries. Augment what you already have. You do not need to rip and replace. You can use AI to watch and listen at scale, to summarize and prioritize, and to surface signals that humans care about but can't reliably catch in real time. The benefit is leverage. Proctors spend their attention where it matters most. Safety teams respond sooner with better context. Leaders see outcomes captured in metrics that stand up in audits and boardrooms. Throughput increases, incidents are avoided, cycle times are reduced, and revenue is unlocked. Well, here we are at the end. So thank you for spending this time with me. My aim today was to replace hype with a practical path. You saw how to frame problems in business terms, gauge readiness across data, architecture, and governance, and choose integration strategies that fit real constraints and real timelines. So just to reiterate, we begin by focusing on value rather than algorithms. Together, we identify the high friction workflows where seconds matter, or where people are buried in low value monitoring and manual checking. From there, we map your constraints in detail. We account for data boundaries, privacy obligations, vendor lock-ins, legacy endpoints that no one wants to disturb, and modern platforms that have clear and clean APIs. The solution is shaped to respect each one of those realities, so progress does not depend on wishful thinking. With the landscape understood, we design for reliability and oversight. Human in the loop is by default. Escalation paths are explicit, audit trails are complete, bias and fairnesses are tested, and fail-safes are in place for the moments when network wobbles or the models are drifting. We integrate the augmentation layer directly into the places where work already happens, so teams don't need a new portal to see the new results. Alerts land in your consoles, in your ticketing systems, in your existing chat channels, and in your standard operating procedures. We measure the outcomes leaders already track, so the improvements show up in the metrics that really matter. Operational readiness comes next. Models and pipelines are versioned, performance is monitored for drift, retraining has a clear cadence, and rollback plans are real and rehearsed. Your teams get dashboards that explain what the AI is seeing and how it's performing in clear, plain language that they can act on. Once a focused pilot proves technically fit and economic value in your environment, you scale it deliberately. Hold on, somebody's asking me to turn on my camera, so hold on 1 second. There we go. Can you guys see me now? Okay. What was I talking about? So yeah, the focus pilot. So once you have the focus pilot and it proves technically fit, we will scale it. Only at that point. We expand by use case and by site with strong change and practical training, as well as lightbook playbooks that make the adoptions stick like crazy. Under the hood, the ingredients will obviously vary. Some situations call for edge models that sit right next to the cameras, and other uses where you have cloud inference and it has strict access controls. Event streams can feed real-time rules. Retrieval can ground decisions in your policies and your knowledge set. Lightweight agents can orchestrate small tasks end-to-end with approvals at the right step. The point here is not to chase buzzwords. The point is to deliver precise, observable outcomes that compound over time. So you saw how this looks in practice. Proctors can supervise many more learners without losing integrity because attention shifts from staring at quiet screens and reviewing well-framed events with evidence, okay? Safety teams on offshore rigs can spot what matters in time because noisy signals are grouped into a single alert with clear context and a playbook. So these are real outcomes. They're not experiments. We bring the scale and experience to do this with you from discovery through production. We have the architects, we have the data engineers, we have machine language specialists, QA, DevOps, and obviously delivery leads to assemble the right team for your environment and for any kind of governance needs that you may have. Whether you need a focused pilot, a path to modernization, or a cross-functional teams that owns outcomes, we're ready to support you. So now's my favorite part. Let's open it up for Q&A. Let me take a look at what questions we have here. Just 1 second. Okay, how do you control cost and keep spend predictable? Okay, so let's see. We design control for cost like a first-class feature. One step is right sizing. We route simple tasks to small, fast models, and we reserve the larger models for the few cases that truly need them. We cap and trim tokens. We stream partial results, and we cache frequent queries. So you're not paying twice for the same answer. Step 2 is observability. Every request carries a live cost estimate, and we roll those up by team, by feature, and by use case. So you can see the price per successful outcome, not just for the price per call. Step 3 is guardrails. We set a per team budget, alert the thresholds, and automated throttles. So if spend begins to spike, we degrade very gracefully to a cheaper model, or we provide some kind of deterministic rules rather than turning the feature completely off. Step 4 is prompt hygiene. Okay, we review the top cost offenders every week. We tighten your templates, and we reduce unnecessary context, and we prune conversation memory. And last but not least is we negotiate smartly, and we keep portability very real. So an abstraction layer lets us do A/B testing across various providers. Then we can choose the best unit economics for each workload, and we switch if pricing changes. And believe me, pricing will change almost on a weekly basis. So the result is a predictable spend. You get target cost per request, you have cost per resolved ticket, and you have a monthly budget that is your envelope. When the numbers will start drifting, the system should react automatically. And obviously the playbook is quite real. You have optimizing prompts, and you have to optimize the routing first. Then you revisit the model, and only then you consider your scope, and you ensure your value stays obviously ahead of your cost. So I hope I answered that question. Okay, let me see the next question here. What's the fallback when the model is slow or down? Okay, so reliability begins with admitting that dependencies fail and also designing the experience so users still get the help that they're looking for. So we wrap every model call with timeouts, with retries, and with circuit breakers. So if latency crosses that threshold, we immediately fall back to a secondary model, assuming you have one configured, with a smaller footprint, or we serve some kind of deterministic answer, which is grounded in your policies and your FAQs. So when the question involves some kind of action, we pivot to a safe workflow, right? So we open a pre-filled ticket, we route to a human queue with the context that was available, and we show the user what happened, but we use plain language to do so. and we also degrade the UI very gracefully. The streaming stops, a concise message will appear, and the user sees a safe alternative rather than just a spinning spinner. Now, on the back end, we cue the spikes. We apply some kind of back pressure, and we use, do you have internal, hold on, guys. and we use, what are we doing? We use keys. So the transparent errors don't duplicate the work. Health checks and SLOs, they watch latency, they watch error rates, they watch availability. And while the dashboards, they flag incidents and on-call activities. So post-incident, you want to replay the same scenarios in your evaluation harness to make sure that the fix has been confirmed. So the philosophy is rather simple. If the brain is slow, the reflexes essentially take over. So users get a reliable outcome today. The system captures enough evidence to follow up, and the operations team has enough information to proceed, and you have enough information captured for follow-ups and a predictable playbook that turns that kind of a hiccup situation into a minor wrinkle rather than a complete outage. Okay, let me look at another question. How do you integrate inside Microsoft 365? Oh, okay. So when we meet users that already have something live, like Outlook, Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive, the authentication flows through Microsoft Azure Active Directory. So every suggestion and every action that we create will respect your roles, it will respect your groups, and the conditional access policies. In Teams, we can use bots, we can use message extensions, and adaptive cards to summarize the threads, draft the replies with citation, and convert the chat decisions into a specifically tracked task. In Outlook, an add-in can read a message. It can pull the right policy from SharePoint. It can propose some kind of a grounded reply, and it can file the interaction to the system of record, whatever that may be. SharePoint propose a governed knowledge source. So we can index the libraries with document level permissions, and those permissions will always be intact. So the retrieval returns only what a user can already see and can already have access to. With Microsoft Graph, you can stitch together all kinds of wonderful things. You can stitch calendar and people and files. It enriches all of that while honoring DLP and information protection. To automate, you can use Power Automate connectors, and those let you provide instant triggering using approved flows without inventing any kind of new pathways. Everything should be logged to your observability stack with correlated IDs. So the security team, if you have one, can audit who asked what and which sources were used and what was approved and what was rejected. Okay, the net effect is that there's no new portal and there's no shadow identity of any kind. Users keep the daily tools that they use, admins keep the governance that they already have, and your leaders see the impact in their existing dashboards, and that's the key. So it feels native because it's built on top of, in this particular example, on top of Microsoft extensions rather than bolted on from the side. Okay. I'm looking at the time and it's way longer than I thought. So I'm not going to be able to answer any more questions, but I'd like to offer you an invitation. Okay. Think about one place in your operation where attention is scarce, risk is high, or demand exceeds capacity. Okay? Pick a workflow. Don't pick a department. Let us put an augmentation layer on top of it, and we can prove two things in your environment. It works with your systems and people, and it pays for itself in outcomes that you can show to your board. From there, we can build a roadmap. We can put guardrails in writing, and we can scale with confidence. My role here is to make AI useful, safe, and economically meaningful for your legacy or your modern platform. Your teams keep the judgment. Your tools keep their place. The work gets faster, safer, and more consistent. I can follow up with this slide deck and a short readiness checklist that you can use with your team. When you're ready, I'll also be ready. So let us turn your next constraint into your next advantage. So thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate you being here, and I hope to see you at my next webinar. Bye-bye.